Hello students, today we are going to discuss another important topic of the second unit of the advanced level chemistry syllabus under structure and bonding. So far you have learned about covalent bonds, ionic bonds, the way how Lewis structures are drawn, and about the resonance structures. All these things now we have understood clearly. So today I will explain one important point which comes under the competency level 2.2. They are about the shapes of the covalent and polar covalent molecules and simple ionic groups and hybridization of different atoms of different molecules. So today's lesson will be focused on hybridization, but before I explain that part, I will explain a little bit about the way how you are deciding or you are deducing the number of covalent bonds that a particular element can form based on its position in the periodic table. That means if you know the group number of a particular element and if you know the valence shell configuration of the element, then you can get an idea about the way how that particular element is going to form bonds. So that part I will explain, and after that we will explain hybridization in detail, and then in the next lesson we are explaining about the geometries or shapes of molecules. So when we consider the relationship between the number of valence shell electrons and the number of covalent bonds formed by the element, if you look at group 1 elements in the periodic table, group 1 elements in most of the cases they form ionic bonds, and also the group 2 elements form ionic bonds, but group 2 beryllium tend to form covalent bonds. In that case beryllium shares 2 valence shell electrons that the particular element has. Beryllium has 2 valence shell electrons, those 2 valence shell electrons are shared. So group 1 and group 2 elements, basically the tendency is for formation of ionic bonds. We know that in the periodic table in the left hand side you have less electronegative elements or more electropositive elements, and in the right hand side of a period you have more electronegative elements. So group 1 and 2 elements in the left hand side of the periodic table of a particular period, there is a higher tendency to form ionic bonds by forming cations, monovalent and divalent cations. When it comes to group 13 elements, or simply group 3A elements, the outer electron configuration is ns2np1. When you consider the valence shell, orbital diagram can be represented like this in the ground state, ns2np1. So in the ground state it looks like it can form only one covalent bond, because we know that covalent bonds are formed by overlapping of unpaired atomic orbitals and the overlapping of a paired atomic orbital and an empty orbital. Therefore, when you look at the ground state configuration, it looks like this can form one simple covalent bond, and in addition it can form a dative covalent bond as well because of that paired orbital. But we know elements in group 13, for example boron, aluminium, they form 3 covalent bonds. So this method I am going to explain will give you an idea how to deduce the number of covalent bonds that it can form. Now in this ground state low energy subenergy level, there are 2 electrons. So if one electron absorbs little bit of energy and move into the high energy subenergy level of the same valence shell, then it will result 3 unpaired orbitals. Now with 3 unpaired orbitals, this element can form 3 covalent bonds. So excited state is this one. So this is called the ground state, lowest possible energy state. So when an electron absorbs some energy and move into this one electron from S sub energy level absorbs some energy and move into this P sub energy level, result in a configuration or arrangement like this, 3 unpaired orbitals. So 3 unpaired orbitals means it can now form 3 covalent bonds. Now if you look at compounds like BCl3, covalent molecules, AlCl3. So these molecules, the way how they are formed can be understood from this part. But we know that around boron and aluminum, in these cases, that particular element does not have the electron octet. So in such situations, the element tend to form or get stabilized further by forming more bonds after formation of that particular molecule. That is the point where we discussed about the dative covalent bonding. Now these kind of molecules tend to accept electron pairs to form more bonds there in order to achieve the electron octet. But here basically they can form 3 covalent bonds by expanding this number of unpaired orbitals of the atom. This process requires little bit of energy, but on the other hand, after formation of 3 unpaired orbitals, more covalent bonds are formed. That means more energy would be released when greater number of covalent bonds are formed. That amount of energy released is more than enough to compensate the energy requirement here. So here little bit of energy is required, that energy will be absorbed from the environment, but with the formation of more bonds after this process will release more energy. Therefore, this is we call energetically favorable. This process happens, this happens in nature. So group 14 elements, for example, NS2-NP2 configuration, here in the ground state, you have 2 unpaired orbitals and 1 paired orbital. But we know group 14 elements such as carbon, they always form 4 covalent bonds. But in the ground state atom, we cannot explain the way how 4 covalent bonds are formed by an element like carbon. But again you can think of that. Here you have low energy sub-energy level paired orbitals, high energy sub-energy level empty orbital. So if one electron goes to this empty orbital, then you will end up with 3 unpaired orbitals. That means 3 unpaired orbitals here plus this unpaired orbital, altogether 4 unpaired orbitals. That means now it can form 4 covalent bonds. For example, if you look at a molecule like CH4, CO2, they always have 4 covalent bonds. So this can be explained from this electron excitation, the idea of this is something we used to explain the way how different number of covalent bonds are formed by the different elements in the periodic table. When it comes to group 15 elements, you have S level, P sub level. Apart from nitrogen, the other elements like phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, those elements, they have D sub energy level also in the valence shell. So when they have D sub energy level in the valence shell, that D sub energy level is empty. Now in the ground state you have 3 unpaired orbitals and 1 paired orbital. Here in the ground state it looks like this can form 3 covalent bonds by the overlapping of these unpaired orbitals with another set of unpaired orbitals, and there is a tendency or possibility of forming a dative covalent bond as well. So altogether it can form 4 covalent bonds, 3 covalent bonds and 1 dative covalent bond. So 4 bonds could be formed, but we know that elements like phosphorus and nitrogen, maximum number of covalent bonds it forms is 4. That is true. Ammonia 3, for example, NH4 plus ion, 4 bonds are there. One is a dative bond, dative covalent bond. But a molecule like PCl5, when it comes to phosphorus, for example, we know that it can form up to 5 covalent bonds. 5 covalent bonds. But this kind of a configuration, this state, we cannot explain the way how 5 covalent bonds are formed. But if you think of again excitation of this electron towards this empty d orbital, then you will end up with 4 unpaired orbitals. These 4 unpaired orbitals enable us to form or enable it to form 5 covalent bonds. So, group 15 elements, they can form 3 covalent bonds, with the dative bond 4 covalent bonds as well as 5 covalent bonds. For example, molecules like ammonia, ions like ammonium, here 3 covalent bonds, in this case 4 covalent bonds, but in this particular stage 5 covalent bonds. So, all these things can easily be deduced if you have the idea of the position of that element in the periodic table and the electron configuration. Now, in the previous one, there are that formation of additional bonds, like for example, if you think of phosphorus, here it can form a molecule like PCl3, but after the excitation it forms a molecule like PCl5. That means 2 more covalent bonds are formed, that means more energy will be released. That energy is enough or more than enough to compensate the small energy requirement here in order to bring this electron to a higher energy state. Now, when group 16 elements are considered, ground state configuration NS2 NP4. Now, we can see NS level NS2 NP4. Ground state, it has 2 unpaired orbitals. If you look at an element like sulfur or oxygen, 2 covalent bonds are formed by those elements. For example, water, molecules like H2S, there you can see 2 covalent bonds. The central atom has formed 2 covalent bonds. So, that can be explained from the ground state configuration even, but we know elements such as sulfur, they can form sometimes 4 covalent bonds, sometimes 6 covalent bonds. When it comes to sulfur, for example, sulfur can form molecules like SF4, 4 covalent bonds, SO2, 4 covalent bonds, H2SO3, 4 covalent bonds. Now, if one of these paired orbitals, now we have 2 sublevels with electrons which are low in energy compared to this empty d level. This is the same valence shell there, Ns, Np, Nd. When it comes to oxygen, no d orbitals there, but sulfur and elements after that, d orbitals are there. Let us say this is sulfur, then 3s2, 3p4, 3d level is empty. So, if one electron moves to this level, then you get that excited state, let us say first excited state. Here 4 unpaired orbitals, so 4 covalent bonds could be formed. Still you have paired orbitals in low energy sublevels. So, if this is moved to high energy sublevel, so we will end up with 6 unpaired orbitals. 6 unpaired orbitals, that means it can form 6 covalent bonds. For example, SF6, like SO3, H2SO4. In all these molecules, the sulfur central atom here has formed 6 covalent bonds. So, it is very easy to explain these things. So, group 16 elements, they can form 2 bonds, 4 bonds as well as 6 bonds. So, later in unit 3 you will learn accordingly they can show the valencies 2, 4, 6 and oxidation numbers like -2, +4, +6. All these are related to each other. So, if you have a better understanding about the periodic table and position of each element in the periodic table, so that is the foundation. So, periodic table, knowledge on the periodic table is very, very important, right? That is very important for inorganic chemistry. Now, when it comes to group 17 elements, we know halogens, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, like that. Those elements, ground state, you have configuration like this NS2 NP5, 1 unpaired orbital. So, unpaired orbitals equal to 1. So, ground state configuration is like this. For example, when you consider molecules like HCl, 1 covalent bond is formed. 1 covalent bond is formed. These d orbitals are not there in fluorine, but other halogens like chlorine, bromine, iodine, they have these d levels also. If I consider the shifting of 1 p electron, or the 1 electron of p level to the d sub energy level, empty d orbital, then you will get a situation like this where you have 3 unpaired orbitals. That means it can form now 3 covalent bonds. So, for example, if you look at an element like chlorine, it can form 3 covalent bonds. For example, HClO2, this molecule, chlorine has formed 3 covalent bonds. If you look at the Lewis structure, like this, HClO2, 3 covalent bonds there. We know that there are compounds formed by elements like chlorine, bromine, iodine with 5 covalent bonds also, and also they can form sometimes 7 covalent bonds. So, we will try to understand how these elements can form more covalent bonds. Here still you have paired orbitals in p and s levels. So, if another electron got excited to d level, you will end up with a situation with 5 unpaired orbitals. That means it can form 5 covalent bonds. For example, a molecule like HClO3 is an example. A molecule like IF5, where iodine forms 5 covalent bonds, is an example. They can form 5 covalent bonds, these halogens. Still you have another electron. If there is an excitation, you will end up with this situation where you have 7 unpaired orbitals, 7 covalent bonds could be formed, like HClO3, not HClO3, HClO4, IF7. So, in these molecules, the respective halogen, the central atom, has formed 7 covalent bonds. So, group 17 elements, they can form 1 covalent bond, 3 covalent bonds, 5 covalent bonds, as well as 7 covalent bonds. Accordingly, you will learn in unit 3 when we discuss about oxidation numbers, they can show valencies 1, 3, 5, 7 and oxidation numbers such as -1, then +1 also shown, +3, +5, +7, like that. So, all these are related to each other. So, this is another very important thing. If you try to understand this properly, then this will make the things easier, the inorganic chemistry parts easier when it comes to deciding the number of covalent bonds that a particular atom forms. Then when you draw the structures also, this knowledge will be very helpful, right. Now, if you consider group 18 elements, we know that group 18 elements, they already have NS2 NP6 configurations. The configuration they have is the most stable configuration, and their atoms cannot lower the energy under normal conditions further. They already have the lowest energy. Therefore, group 18 elements under normal conditions, they do not form compounds. Under normal conditions, they do not form compounds, but under extreme conditions, when some extreme conditions are provided, group 18 elements, certain elements also react to form different compounds. But under normal conditions, they do not form compounds because they already have the stable configuration. Now, when it comes to the covalent bonding, one important theory is the valence bond theory. Valence bond theory is the one which describes the actual nature of a bond, and from the valence bond theory, we can get an idea about the way how a covalent bond is formed. It explains that covalent bonds are formed by this overlapping of these atomic orbitals, like 2 unpaired orbitals, so paired orbital and an empty orbital. So, that can be explained by valence bond theory. Also, valence bond theory is able to explain the way how multiple bonds, like double bonds, triple bonds, they are formed. Multiple bonds are formed, but there is a particular limitation, or there are some limitations of the valence bond theory, especially when it comes to shapes of molecules, when it comes to determination of bond angles. Valence bond theory sometimes fails to explain the actual shapes of molecules, actual bond angles of molecules. We can measure the bond angles, bond lengths of these molecules using X-rays, using X-ray diffraction methods. When we measure these things and when we compare the values predicted or the shapes predicted by valence bond theory, the valence bond theory is not able, valence bond theory fails to explain their actual shapes, and also valence bond theory fails to explain their bond angles. Therefore, we need to have another concept, another idea to explain this. We need to have another concept to explain the geometries of molecules and actual bond angles of molecules. That is the point where this theoretical concept, hybridization, comes to the picture. The hybridization is a theoretical concept proposed there, from which we can explain those things which cannot be explained by the valence bond theory. Now, when we consider a molecule like CH4, but before the CH4 molecule, I will explain a very simple molecule, for example, say water molecule. Water molecule, we know oxygen atom, configuration 1s2, two p4. This 2p4 configuration, these p orbitals you have two unpaired orbitals. Now we know that these p orbitals are perpendicular to each other. P orbitals are perpendicular to each other. Therefore, when water or the hydrogen atoms overlap with these p orbitals which are perpendicular to each other, then water molecule will looks like this. Then the water molecule looks like this. Now these are the p orbitals. Perpendicular to each other. Let us say this p orbital is the paired orbital, 2 electrons there, these two are the unpaired orbitals. If hydrogen atoms form bonds in the water molecule, say hydrogen atom, you get these two linear overlappings. So there you get two sigma bonds formed. But what about the geometry, or what about the angle between these atoms, among these atoms, HOH angle? Because the p orbitals, p orbitals are perpendicular to each other. Now this simple model, you can see now in this model these orbitals are shown like planar structures, but you need to have an idea that these are three-dimensional, right? So these are like it looks like a cone. It should be like a cone. Three-dimensional distribution should be there, but here you get simply a planar structure, planar model there. Now this is one p orbital. This is another p orbital. They are perpendicular. This is the third p orbital. So these p orbitals are perpendicular to each other. If hydrogen atoms form bonds with p orbitals, let's say one hydrogen forms bond with this p orbital, this one, and the other hydrogen forms bond with this one, then between the hydrogen atoms, the angle HOH angle would be 90 degrees. HOH angle would be 90 degrees. That would be 90 degrees. Now, this can be explained, or this can be shown like this. But actual bond angle of water molecule, the experimentally measured bond angle of water molecule is about 104.5 degrees. that is completely different from the angle predicted here. That means the valence bond theory cannot explain this. Another example as I have given here, CH4. In CH4 molecule, when the actual molecule is considered, when the bond angles are measured, it is a molecule like this. All 4 CH bonds are identical. All 4 CH bonds are identical. But this is the experimental result. The CH4 molecule, experimentally represented molecule using the experimental data, it looks like this. When CH4 molecule is represented using experimentally measured bond angles, it looks like this, a tetrahedral molecule, each bond angle equal to 109.5. But the problem is we cannot explain the way how this type of a molecule is formed by carbon atom. Right. Let's see why it cannot be explained. Now, carbon atom ground state configuration is like this. When you consider the excited state of carbon atom, ground state configuration is like this. Excited state carbon atom will be like this, one electron goes to this one. Then you will end up with 4 unpaired orbitals, but the problem is out of these 4 orbitals, 3 will be perpendicular to the other each other, and the other one will be in the middle. It is spherical, s orbital. So, in that case it cannot form 4 identical bonds with that tetrahedral geometry. Therefore, we need another concept to explain the way how this type of a molecule is formed. That means we need another concept to explain the geometries and bond angles of these molecules. So, it is clear that carbon should possess like 4 identical unpaired orbitals before the CH4 molecule is formed. Now, in this excited state carbon atom, it does not have 4 identical orbitals, because it will have 3 orbitals here, like this. So, they will have different energies and their orientations, these 3 perpendicular and this is in the middle. So, they are not identical in terms of shape and the energy. Therefore, at this stage it cannot form such a molecule with identical bonds. Now, that means before the bonds are formed in CH4 molecule, the carbon atom should first come up with or first make 4 identical orbitals. It should first make 4 identical orbitals in order to make this type of a molecule. That is the argument. So, we can think like that. So, since the ground state carbon does not have 4 identical unpaired orbitals, it should form 4 unpaired orbitals before the bonds are formed. This process of combination of atomic orbitals with different energies and shapes to form a set of orbitals which are identical in the shape and energy prior to the formation of bonds is called the hybridization. So, this particular process is called the hybridization. Hybridization is simply the simplest meaning or the simple meaning of the hybridization is the process of combination or mixing of atomic orbitals with different energies and shapes in the same atom in order to form a set of atomic orbitals which are identical in energy and the shape. Shape and energy must be identical in the resultant orbitals. So, that is called the hybridization. So, hybridization is basically a theoretical concept. Generally, in the hybridization, orbitals belong to 2 different sub-energy levels. Generally, in the hybridization, orbitals belong to 2 different sub-energy levels involved. They belong to the same main energy level. 2 different sub-energy levels. But there are instances where orbitals belong to 2 different energy levels of the same atom involved in the hybridization. There are instances where orbitals belong to 2 different main energy levels involved in the hybridization as well. That part will be discussed in inorganic chemistry in brief, but here we mainly focus about the hybridization of atomic orbitals which belong to the same main energy level. Now, generally the orbitals belong to two different sublevels of the same main energy level involved, but there are instances where orbitals belong to two consecutive main energy levels involved, that means valence shell and the penultimate shell. This concept of hybridization cannot be used for an atom alone. It is always used when it comes to bonding, formation of bonds. So, it is used to describe the bonding formed by a particular atom. There should be a minimum of two atomic orbitals with different shapes and energy that must involve in mixing or which undergo hybridization to form hybrid orbitals. The minimum, there must be two atomic orbitals with different shapes and energy. Example, when it comes to a s orbital can hybridize with one or more p orbitals up to 3 of the same atom. These hybrid orbitals do not have a clear identity. Their shapes are different from the original orbitals. That means S sub energy level, the orbitals in S sub energy level can combine with orbitals of the p sub energy level. Then those combined orbitals or the resultant orbitals, they are known as sp orbitals or sp2 orbitals or sp3 orbitals, depending on the number of orbitals involved. That can be explained like this. Now, in that carbon atom, if you remember in CH4, in the excited state, I showed you that excited state carbon atom, it looks like S and 3 p orbitals. Like this. Now, when it comes to CH4 molecule, it needs 4 identical orbitals to be made before the formation of CH4. Therefore, if this s orbital combines with these 3 p orbitals, then we can consider that process as sp3 hybridization, because 1 s orbital and 3 p orbitals get mixed with each other. So, that is sp3 hybridization. Number of hybrid orbitals formed is equal to the number of atomic orbitals that participate in hybridization. For example, if 1 s orbital and 1 p orbital undergo hybridization, then 2 atomic orbitals or 2 atomic orbitals involved there. So, 2 hybrid orbitals will be formed there. Though atomic orbitals at different energy levels are mixed, the resulting orbitals, hybrid orbitals, will be at the same energy level. Now, in that carbon atom, I explained earlier that CH4 molecule, atomic orbitals in 2p level and 2s level are mixed. Resultant orbitals will have the same energy. So, we are going to discuss that part in detail here. Before that, we will try to understand the important points regarding the hybridization. After that, I will explain one by one. So, these hybrid orbitals differ only in the orientation of the 3-dimensional space, but are identical in the shape and the energy when the atomic orbitals are s and p. When it comes to the s and p orbitals which involved in hybridization, their shape and energy, their shapes are actually identical, energies are also identical. Hybrid orbitals in a particular atom can overlap. That overlapping is always linear, that means sigma bonds are formed always with another hybrid orbital or unhybridized atomic orbital to form sigma bonds. These bonds are actually sigma bonds. Sigma bonds are the bonds formed, covalent bonds formed by linear overlapping of orbitals. Right. Hybridization is not a physical process, that means that is a theoretical one, that is just a concept. According to this imaginary process, there are 3 different kinds of hybridizations possible for the carbon atom. When it comes to carbon atom, we can discuss 3 different types of hybridization according to the different types of molecules formed by carbon. When we study different types of molecules formed by carbon, we can identify that carbon can undergo 3 different types of hybridization processes. So, mixing of s orbital with 3 p orbitals to form 4 sp3 orbitals, 4 sp3 hybridized orbitals, that is called sp3 hybridization. These orbitals will arrange tetrahedrally. We will see the geometries. Then mixing of one s orbital, the only s orbital is 2 p orbitals, s orbital and 2 p orbitals to form 3 sp2 orbitals, that is called sp2 hybridization. One s orbital and one p orbital, then 2 sp orbitals are formed. That process is called sp hybridization. So, sp hybridization, sp2 hybridization and sp3 hybridization. So, hybridization is basically combination or mixing of atomic orbitals with different energies and shapes to produce or form a set of orbitals which are identical in energy and shape. Based on the types and the number of orbitals involved in that process, we can name or we can label that type of the hybridization. Here sp3 means 1s orbital and 3p orbitals. First we will see sp3 hybridization. First we will see sp3 hybridization. This is the ground state carbon atom. Excited state carbon atom, you have 4 unpaired orbitals. When it undergoes sp3 hybridization, you get 4 identical orbitals in terms of energy. Now, same energy, that energy of the resultant orbitals intermediate between the s and p orbitals, because p orbitals energy greater than s. So, the resultant orbitals will have an intermediate energy, and their shapes are also intermediate to s and p orbitals. You know, s orbitals are spherical, p orbitals are dumbbell shaped. sp3 hybrid orbitals, their shapes are somewhat intermediate. That means they do not have a clear identity. Their shapes are in between s and p orbitals. We will see what are the shapes there. When you consider sp3 hybridization, there you can see in the atom 1 s orbital and 3 p orbitals. When they combine, you get 4 sp3 orbitals. Their shapes are somewhat, they do not have a clear identity. Their shapes are somewhat intermediate as well as their energy. So, sp3 orbitals, they will arrange in the atom like this. This arrangement is called tetrahedral arrangement. Tetrahedral arrangement or tetrahedral geometry. So, if you consider the atomic orbitals in an sp3 hybridized carbon atom, I can show those orbitals like this, tetrahedral arrangement. When it comes to the formation of a molecule like CH4, you can see that hydrogen atoms, 1s orbitals, can overlap linearly to form the molecule like CH4. The overlapping occurs between hydrogen atoms with unpaired orbital and with these 4 sp3 orbitals. Now, you can explain or you can understand why that CH4 molecule is tetrahedral and why that bond angle is about 109. Now, that could not explain from the valence bond theory, but with the use of this concept hybridization, you can explain this. So, that is about the sp3 hybridization and formation of CH4 molecule. Let us see the next type of the hybridization with regard to the carbon atom. Now, the next type of hybridization, when you consider the carbon atom, that carbon atom, when we study the compounds formed by carbon atom, we can identify 3 types of hybridization as I explained earlier. Now, sp2 hybridization involves mixing of 1 s orbital and 2 p orbitals. Now, here 3 p orbitals in the sub-energy level, 2 out of that will involve their sp2 hybridization. Now, 3 orbitals will be there, 1 atomic orbital. This is the unhybridized p orbital. Unhybridized p atomic orbital will be there. Now, when you consider these atomic orbitals, the way how they are arranged, these sp2 orbitals will arrange in the atom so that repulsions are minimum. The minimum repulsive state for the sp2 orbitals is the trigonal planar arrangement. I can explain that. I can show you from this kind of a diagram. Now, 1 s orbital and 2 p orbitals involved there. P orbitals were perpendicular to each other to form 3 sp2 orbitals. Now, sp2 orbitals will remain in the same plane, that arrangement called trigonal planar arrangement, trigonal planar geometry, and the unhybridized p orbital will be perpendicular to this plane. Now, there you can see 3 sp2 orbitals, trigonal planar arrangement. This is the unhybridized 2p orbital, unhybridized 2p orbital. So, that is how the sp2 hybridized carbon atom looks like. when we consider a molecule like C2H4, the molecule with 2 carbon atoms, when you draw the Lewis structure, you will get the Lewis structure like this. When the bond angles are measured experimentally, we can understand the experimental results, or the experimental data suggests that the geometry around each carbon atom in this molecule is trigonal planar. To have trigonal planar geometry around each carbon atom, it is necessary to have 3 orbitals which are arranged trigonally planar before the bonds are formed. Therefore, this should undergo sp2 hybridization. So, if sp2 hybridization is there, then both carbon atoms will have sp2 orbitals like this, the unhybridized orbital perpendicular to like this. Then these 2 carbon atoms, these 2 sp2 orbitals will overlap linearly, forming a sigma bond, and these sp2 orbitals will overlap with hydrogen atoms to form sigma bonds. I can just represent in the same diagram like this. For 1s orbitals like this. Then the 2p orbital which did not undergo hybridization, perpendicular to each other, those will overlap laterally to form the pi bond. So, this is a pi bond that electron pair, the electron cloud of the pi bond is just above and below the axis of the sigma bond. So, C2H4 molecule actually looks like this C2H4 molecule. Now, the experimentally measured bond angles, they agree with the concept of this hybridization and the angles predicted by hybridization or the hybrid orbitals there. So, this is about the sp2 hybridization and formation of a molecule like C2H4. Now, this also represents the formation of the sigma bond by sp2 orbitals, and this is a carbon-carbon sigma bond, and here the pi bond formed by the lateral overlap we represent simply like this. So, there are 2 electron clouds above and below the plane, and here the other sp2 orbitals, they overlap with hydrogen atoms, 4 hydrogen atoms. So, this diagram clearly shows you the structure of that C2H4 molecule. So, the electron cloud formed by lateral overlap exists just above and below the axis of the sigma bond. So, this is another representation of the same molecule C2H4. So, the hybridization of the carbon atom is sp2. Now, we discussed about sp3 hybridization and sp2 hybridization. Let us move into the sp hybridization. In the sp hybridization, one s orbital involves in the hybridization, that means it combines with one p orbital. There are 3 p orbitals, it combines with one p orbital. So, one s orbital and one p orbital, they will form 2 sp orbitals. So, the number of orbitals involved in the hybridization is same as the number of orbitals resulted from the hybridization. So, here one s orbital and one p orbital, then the result is 2 sp orbitals. Their energies intermediate between s and p, and their shapes are also different from the shapes of s and p orbitals. Now, here 2 sp orbitals and there are 2 p orbitals which are perpendicular to each other, which remain in the same atom. Now, this can be represented using a simple diagram like this. Here one s orbital and one p orbital involved in the hybridization. So, these are the shapes of sp orbitals. P orbitals, you know, they are dumbbell shaped, but sp orbitals, their shapes are different from s and p orbitals. Now, since there are 2 sp orbitals formed, they will remain in the atom, so that repulsions are minimum. The minimum repulsive state is the state where the orbitals are further from each other. That state is the state where the angle between these two orbitals, since there are two orbitals, the angle will always be 180. So, that these orbitals will be arranged in the linear arrangement. They will be arranged linearly. So, linear arrangement is the arrangement, and you cannot forget that there are two unhybridized p orbitals remain in the atom, that I can show like this. Now, when it comes to this sp hybridized carbon atom, we can show like this from a diagram like this, from a model like this. So, here these are the two sp orbitals, and there are two unhybridized p orbitals, atomic orbitals perpendicular to each other. So, this is one and the other one is in this axis perpendicular to each other. So, this is how the sp hybridized carbon atom looks like. In the middle you have to assume that is the nucleus. When we consider a molecule like C2H2, the Lewis structure of C2H2 molecule is this. Lewis structure is this. So, when this molecule is studied experimentally, it was found that the geometry around each carbon atom is linear. That means this angle is linear, 180. This angle is 180. So, to have an angle like this, it is clear that this carbon should possess two orbitals which are arranged linearly before the bonds are formed. But we know the normal carbon atom in the ground state or excited state, it does not have two linearly arranged unpaired orbitals. Therefore, to form two unpaired orbitals which are arranged linearly, which are identical in energy and shape, this should undergo sp hybridization. Once it undergoes sp hybridization, it forms this type of two orbitals as I have already shown you. Then when it comes to the formation of C2H2, we can explain like this. This also explains the sp orbitals and two unhybridized p orbitals there. These are the two sp orbitals which are shown in yellow color, and these two orbitals are the 2p atomic orbitals. Now, when it comes to formation of a molecule like C2H2, so one carbon atom, its sp orbital overlaps linearly with another sp orbital of the second carbon atom to form a sigma bond, and the two orbitals which are perpendicular to each other. Now, in this diagram you can see clearly these two orbitals, this one and this one. Those are the two orbitals you can see here, this orbital and this is the other one shown perpendicular to that. And there are two other sp orbitals remain. Now, those two orbitals will overlap linearly with hydrogen atoms, 1s orbitals, to form sigma bonds. Here one sigma bond, here also sigma bond, and this is the carbon-carbon sigma bond. But still you have these two p orbitals which did not undergo hybridization and they are also unpaired. These will overlap laterally and they are perpendicular to each other. So, these two will overlap laterally and the perpendicular orbitals will also overlap laterally. So, here you can see one pi bond above and below the plane, and just in front of the plane and behind the plane you have another pi bond there. Two electron clouds above and below the plane by the lateral overlap of these two p orbitals, and the other two electron clouds just in front of this plane and behind the plane due to the lateral overlapping of the remaining two p orbitals. So, this is the structure of C2H2 molecule. This is what we represent or what we show using the Lewis structure like this. So, there you have two pi bonds and one sigma bond. In the triple bond you have two pi bonds and one sigma bond. So, that is the idea of the sp hybridization, and one example I gave you, C2H2 molecule. This is another nice representation showing the two pi bonds. There you can see that two pi bonds are perpendicular. There you can see one from the blue color and the other one from the purple color. They are perpendicular to each other. And in the middle you can see the axis of the sigma bond. Right. Now we have learned about sp hybridization, sp2 hybridization and sp3 hybridization. Now I will make the things easier. Now when you are given a particular molecule or ion, you should be able to draw the Lewis structure that we have already discussed. Once the Lewis structure is drawn, just by looking at the Lewis structure, you can easily deduce the hybridization. Now this is the way from which you can deduce the hybridization. When you look at the structure, when you know the Lewis structure of the molecule, let's say for example SO2 molecule, we know the Lewis structure is this. Now this is the Lewis structure of the SO2 molecule. If you can find the number of sigma bond pairs and lone pairs around any non-terminal atom, because we apply this concept hybridization for formation of bonding when they form bonds. So it is important to apply this hybridization for the non-terminal atoms. For terminal atoms also we can consider, but it is less frequently considered for terminal atoms. So when it comes to non-terminal atoms, let's say the central atom, non-terminal atom, around that if you can find the number of sigma bond pairs and lone pairs, altogether we call VSEPR pairs. VSEPR pairs or simply VSEPR pairs. According to the number of VSEPR pairs around that atom, we can straight away get the hybridization. For example, around this sulfur, we have this pi bond and sigma bond, pi bond and sigma bond. So altogether around this sulfur, you have one sigma bond, two, and there is a lone pair. So altogether 3 VSEPR pairs. That means sigma bond pairs plus lone pairs 3. If that is 3 sp2. If the number of sigma bond pairs plus lone pairs, that means number of VSEPR pairs is 2, hybridization is sp. For example, a molecule like CO2, around this carbon you don't have any lone pair but 2 double bonds there. So that means 2 sigma bonds. So 2 VSEPR pairs. Hybridization of carbon atom is sp. Likewise, if the number of VSEPR pairs is 4, hybridization is sp3. If it is 5, hybridization is sp3d, hybridization is sp3d2 for 6. These two are not discussed in our syllabus, but you need to understand clearly about the sp hybridization, sp2 hybridization and sp3 hybridization. Whenever a molecule or ion is given around any atom, once the Lewis structure is drawn for any atom, you should be able to deduce the hybridization. You should be able to state the hybridization of the particular atom based on the number of VSEPR pairs. VSEPR pairs means basically the number of sigma bond pairs and lone pairs around that particular atom. Now, for example, these molecules, if you are asked to find the hybridization of the central atom, PH3, Lewis structure is this. You can say that number of VSEPR pairs, 3 sigma bond pairs and 1 lone pair. All these single bonds are sigma bonds. 3 sigma bond pairs and 1 lone pair, 4 VSEPR pairs, so hybridization sp3. Thiosulfate ion, the Lewis structure is this. Now you know the method of drawing the Lewis structure of any molecule or ion. Around this sulfur atom, you can see sigma bonds. Here sigma bond and pi bond, sigma bond and pi bond. There are 4 sigma bonds, no lone pairs, so 4 VSEPR pairs. So hybridization is sp3. Similarly, if you consider N2O, you will find that hybridization is sp. This one hybridization is sp. And SO3 molecule, if you consider the Lewis structure of SO3 molecule, you will find that hybridization is sp2. sp2 because around sulfur there are 3 VSEPR pairs. Likewise, we can easily determine the hybridization of any non-terminal atom. Now, in this example, I can easily find the hybridization of each carbon atom. You can see in organic compounds, in molecules, different atoms have different atoms of the same element. They have different hybridizations. Here 4 VSEPR pairs, sp3. Here 3 VSEPR pairs, sp2. Here also the same sp2, sp3, sp2, sp3, sp and sp. Likewise, we can deduce the hybridization of a given atom based on the number of VSEPR pairs around that particular atom. Right. Okay, students, now I hope that you have understood the idea of determining the number of covalent bonds that a particular element can form based on the position of that element in the periodic table. That's the part I discussed earlier. And after that, the very important concept of hybridization I explained. That's a theoretical concept, but in order to explain the bond angles and the geometries, it is necessary to know about this. So we discussed about sp, sp2, sp3 hybridizations in detail. I hope you can understand that. So in the next lesson, we are discussing about the shapes of molecules and ions. So until we meet from the next lesson, have a nice day.